Hello dear students, and welcome back to our video lectures. This week we're talking about another type of stratification, which is namely the racial and ethnic inequalities, or stratifications based on the ethnic and racial divisions in the society. You remember that last week we introduced the topic of stratification, where we were talking about social stratification, which is related to how much people are making money, right, in their income. This week, we will be discussing racial and ethnic inequality. Next week, we'll touch upon the issue of gender, and so on and so forth. All right, so let's get started. Now, before we move on, before we start looking at lots of different theories, at different types of ethnic stratification, let us just, define the concept of ethnicity and race. Now, the word ethnic is derived from the Greek word ethnos, meaning people. Ethnic group refers to a group that is socially defined. You see, it is again socially defined. Just like any other concept in sociology, the concept of ethnicity is a socially defined concept on the basis of the people's cultural characteristics. What are the cultural characteristics that people usually share? Well, you know what the culture is. You know that the culture is a set of ideas, beliefs, values, and norms. So when we're talking of ethnicity with a certain set of cultural characteristics, we mean a group of people who speaks the same language, who worship the same God, the same religion, who have a common understanding of the history, who have some common ideologies, norms and values regarding what is right and what is wrong in the society, right? So there are lots of different ethnic groups, as you can imagine, both in Kazakhstan and around the world. So the ethnicity is then the sense of belonging to a particular ethnic group, thus which implies the existence bound together by common history, values, attitudes, and the behavior. Now the terms race and ethnicity should be distinguished. The word ethnic group, the concept of ethnic group, is socially defined on the basis of its cultural characteristics. Like I said, language, beliefs, values, norms, ideology, religion, and so on and so forth. These things differentiate ethnic group from a racial group. Now the term race then refers to groups that are socially defined not on the group's cultural characteristics, but on the group's physical characteristics, okay? Such as skin color, shape of an eye, shape of a nose, this sort of things, all right? So to reiterate, cultural characteristics pertain to the ethnic group identification, and physical characteristics define individuals' racial belonging, racial identity. Next thing on our list is the differentiation between the minority and the majority groups. The terms minority and the majority are usually used to refer to social relations in which racial and ethnic criteria are employed in the society's systems of stratification. So you know what the system of stratification is. Now, when we're talking about the minority and the majority, we usually refer to the groups of people who belong to either of the ethnic groups in the society. So the ethnic groups which are bigger in size, they're usually called as the majority ethnic groups. The ethnic groups which are smaller in size, these are usually referred to as the ethnic minority groups. The distinctive feature of a minority group or a subordinate group, usually it's subordinate to the majority group, is that it occupies a subordinate position of prestige and power in the society. A minority group is typically excluded from full participation in a society and is the object of discrimination by the majority group. All right, but this is not necessarily the case in the world's most tolerant, most egalitarian societies. In these societies, majority groups don't actually discriminate and stigmatize the members of the minority group. So the minority groups, however, in some societies, they are being under constant pressure, discrimination, prejudice, expulsion, extermination, the sort of attitudes that we will discuss later today in this lecture. The term minority, however, and this is very important, does not only refer to the numerical size of the group. Numerical superiority does not ensure that the group will be dominant. For instance, in the 1980s in Kazakhstan, the population of the proportion of the Kazakhs living in Kazakhstan was much smaller than the proportion of the Slavic population living in Kazakhstan. Yet, still Kazakhstan was, well, the country was called as the Kazakh Soviet Socialist Republic. You see? So even if the Kazakh ethnicity was smaller in size than the Slavic ethnic groups populating Kazakhstan, such as Russians, Ukrainians, Belarusians, Kazakhstan was still called as Kazakhstan, okay? So you can see the size, the numerical size, is not always the best characteristic of either being a minority or a majority group. Now let's look at the relations between the majority and the minority groups. These relations are usually characterized by the presence of such very negative phenomena as prejudice and discrimination. Prejudice and discrimination are very important elements in all the majority and minority relations. The term prejudice, for example, denotes a judgment before all the facts are known about the person, about the social group, about an ethnic group. Prejudice refers to a set of very rigidly held negative attitudes and beliefs towards members of another group. I guess that there is no need in explaining this in further details to you what the word prejudice means. In Russian, it sounds as предрассудки. Okay, so prejudice towards some person, prejudice towards some social group wouldn't usually look very well, if you do this. Okay, if people see you doing this, if people see you, practicing prejudice. Discrimination, on the other hand, involves unfavorable treatment of individuals because of their group membership. You may discriminate people not only based on their ethnic group identity. You may discriminate people because of their age, because of their gender, because of the religion which they are worshiping. You see? But since this week we're talking about racial and ethnic inequalities, we should refer to discrimination based on one's ethnic belonging. Prejudice doesn't always produce discrimination, although it has been frequently treated as the cause of discrimination. An individual, however, may be prejudiced without acting in a discriminatory manner. Now, all of us, for many different reasons, may be prejudiced towards some different sorts of people. Okay, probably you've had very bad experience dealing with some types of people. Hence, you will be quite prejudiced towards the same category, the same type of people. Okay, your prejudice, however, does not necessarily mean that if you come across this type of people in future, that you will necessarily discriminate them. Okay, so this is the difference between prejudice and discrimination. You may be prejudiced, you may be biased, you may dislike some people just because they are Christians, just because they are Muslims, just because they are Russians, or just because they're Indians. Doesn't matter. Okay, but you may be keeping this in your mind without this actually affecting your behavior. But if you let your prejudice actually show up by mistreating the people whom you dislike, then this would characterize you in a very negative way, because in this way you are discriminating a person.